Imagine standing on the walls of a starving city. Below you, tens of thousands of Muslim warriors are gathering, waiting, hungry, eager for blood. Inside, your people are dying of famine, eating rats, grass, even leather shoes just to survive. You are surrounded, outnumbered, hopeless. And then a tall, cunning Norman prince named Bohemond of Taranto leans in and whispers a plan so daring, so insane, that if it works, it will change the fate of the Crusades forever. This is the story of Bohemond, the ruthless, brilliant Crusader prince who outsmarted the Turks, outmaneuvered his rivals, and carved his own kingdom out of the chaos of the First Crusade. Bohemond wasn't supposed to be a Crusader hero. He wasn't even supposed to inherit power. Born around 1054, he was the son of Robert Guiscard, a Norman adventurer who had conquered southern Italy. But Bohemond was the son of Robert's first marriage, which meant he got pushed aside in favor of his younger half-brother. So from the very beginning, Bohemond had something to prove. He wasn't content to be forgotten. He was tall, towering over most men at the time, strong, broad-shouldered, and charismatic. Chroniclers say he looked like the heroes of old, like Achilles reborn in a Norman helmet. But more importantly, he had a mind sharper than any sword. When Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade in 1095, Bohemond saw his chance. He wasn't going east just for faith. He was going for power, land, and a kingdom of his own. The Crusade wasn't a single army. It was a chaotic collection of lords, knights, peasants, and fanatics, all marching toward the Holy Land. Bohemond didn't come empty-handed. He arrived with around 500 knights and thousands of infantry, one of the largest and best disciplined armies in the entire crusading host. But here's the thing, Bohemond wasn't just another warlord. From day one, he was calculating. While other lords bickered about honor and titles, Bohemond studied the battlefield, the politics, and most importantly, his enemies. By the late 11th century, the Seljuk Turks controlled much of Asia Minor. They were fierce horse archers, lightning fast in battle and masters of ambush tactics. European knights, used to heavy cavalry charges, were often humiliated by Turkish hit-and-run strategies. But Bohemond adapted. He watched, he learned, and soon he would prove himself against one of the greatest Turkish commanders of the age, Kerbogha of Mosul. Picture this, July 1st, 1097. The Crusaders are marching through Anatolia. The sun is burning hot. Dust clouds rise with every step. Suddenly, an explosion of arrows. The Turks ambush the vanguard, tearing through the unprepared Crusaders. Panic spreads, but Bohemond doesn't panic. While others flee, he orders his men into a tight defensive formation. Shields up, spears braced. He shouts to hold the line. His calm steadies the troops. For hours, they endure wave after wave of Turkish cavalry. And just when it seems hopeless, reinforcements arrive led by Godfrey and Raymond of Toulouse. The Crusaders rally, crush the Turks, and win a stunning victory. Many chroniclers say it was Bohemond's leadership that saved the Crusaders that day. Without his discipline, the army might have been destroyed before it even reached the Holy Land. And then came Antioch. If you remember nothing else about Bohemond, remember this: Antioch was his masterpiece. Antioch was one of the most important cities in the Middle East. Massive walls, strong fortresses, a gateway to Syria and beyond. If the Crusaders wanted Jerusalem, they had to take Antioch. The siege dragged on for 8 long months. Food ran out, men starved, horses died, people boiled leather for soup, some even resorted to cannibalism. The Crusader army was breaking apart, but Bohemond had a plan. He knew brute force wouldn't work. Antioch's walls were too strong, so he turned to his greatest weapon, his mind. Bohemond secretly made contact with an Armenian guard named Firuz, who commanded one of Antioch's towers. Firuz was bitter, angry at his Turkish overlords. Bohemond promised him wealth and safety if he betrayed the city. One dark night in June 1098, Firuz opened the gates. Bohemond and his men stormed inside, slaughtering the defenders and seizing Antioch. It was one of the boldest, most daring acts of the entire crusade. The Crusaders had turned certain defeat into triumph, all thanks to Bohemond's cunning. But the story didn't end there, because the very next day, a new enemy appeared. Kerbogha of Mosul arrived with a massive army to trap the Crusaders inside the city they had just taken. Now the hunters had become the hunted. The Crusaders were starving, desperate, and hopelessly outnumbered. But again, Bohemond took command. He argued fiercely with the other leaders until they gave him authority to lead. And when the Crusaders finally charged out of Antioch to meet Kerbogha, Kerbogha's forces. It was Bohemond's strategy, tight formations, and careful timing that led them to victory. Against all odds, the Crusaders smashed the Turkish army and secured Antioch once and for all. That battle didn't just save the crusade, it made Bohemond a legend. But here's the twist. Bohemond didn't care much about Jerusalem. While the other Crusaders marched south to capture the holy city, Bohemond stayed in Antioch. He had fought for this city, he had bled for it, and he wasn't about to hand it over. He declared himself Prince of Antioch, founder of a brand new Crusader state. It was a bold move, but also a controversial one. Some of the other Crusader leaders felt betrayed. They accused Bohemond of caring more about power than piety, and maybe they were right. But Bohemond wasn't the kind of man who followed orders. He carved his destiny with sword and strategy, not prayers. Bohemond's story didn't end in Antioch. A few years later, he was captured in battle against the Danishmends, another Turkish power in Anatolia. He spent 3 years in captivity, humiliated, while others ruled in his place. When he finally returned to Europe, he realized Antioch was in danger of being swallowed by the Byzantines, so he pulled off one last masterstroke. Instead of returning to the Crusader states, he went to France, married a wealthy princess, and gathered support for a new campaign. This wasn't just war, it was politics, strategy, survival. Bohemond was always thinking 3 moves ahead. Bohemond of Taranto died in 1111, never seeing Antioch again, but his legacy lived on. He was more than a warrior. He was a gambler, a schemer, a man who bent destiny to his will. Unlike so many Crusader leaders who relied on brute force, Bohemond used his brain as much as his sword. The capture of Antioch remains one of the most legendary episodes of the First Crusade, and it happened because one man dared to think differently. So, who was Bohemond of Taranto? A hero, a villain, a prince chasing glory, or a genius who saw opportunity where others saw despair? History doesn't give us simple answers, but one thing is certain: without Bohemond's cunning, the Crusades might have ended in disaster before they ever reached Jerusalem. He was the Crusader prince who outsmarted the Turks, who gambled everything and won a kingdom. And in the end, that might be the greatest crusade of all.